Hello guys, today I'm going to be doing a video on AC VALHALLA with the Steam Deck. We're going to be starting it off with the low settings at 800p. Alright, here we are. This is the low preset. Alright, looks good. And let's get going. We're going to be starting it off in the city area. This is usually the most intensive areas for the Steam Deck since it's CPU intensive and GPU intensive. And as you can see, we're sitting in the low 40s down into the 30s. But this can get far worse once we get up this hill real quick and look over the city. We'll see an FPS drop down into the mid 30s. Okay, I was actually wrong. It was sitting in the low 40s, not the mid 30s. But yeah, once we leave the city though, we can see a decent FPS bump. If I call for my horse. There we go. Let's get out of the city. A decent FPS bump into the high 40s and low 50s. So this is a bit more intensive than AC Odyssey or AC Origin, since we could hold 60 FPS quite easily once we left the city areas. But with this game, we're getting a bunch of stuttering and FPS is sitting in the mid 40s up to the high 50s and even the low 60s occasionally. Now the quality of the game isn't the best at the low settings, even on the Steam Deck itself. Majority of the textures are very blurry. They don't look very sharp at all. As you can see on my cape, you can see that it's very blurry. You don't really see any detail in it at all. A bunch of detail on the hood with the feathers, but the cape itself is very blurry. And the rock textures as well over here, very blurry as well. Pretty much have no detail on them. Game is stuttering quite heavily in this area though, for sure. I think we're going to be going for the same settings as AC Odyssey, a mix of medium to low settings at 30 FPS. But this game has FSR as well, so it will be a lot easier for us to optimize the game. But yeah, so far the low settings doesn't really look the best, and FPS isn't ideal either. We're still going to be falling into the 40s and 30s. So not really worth using this one for now. Maybe for battery life usage, maybe for portable play, it might come in handy, but I'll optimize that at the end of the video as well. I'm going to go ahead and pause the game, jump into options, and I'm going to go ahead and push it up to the medium preset. Here we are. Alright, looking good. I'm gonna apply the settings and restart when that comes back. Alright, and here we are with the medium settings. As you can see, we took a pretty massive FPS loss, sitting in the low 30s now in the city. Whereas before we were sitting in what? Like the low 40s? So a decent FPS loss. But look at the cape. It looks so sharp and so detailed compared to what we had before at the low settings. Massive difference. Game looks far better and far more usable, I would say. Take a walk. I'm gonna actually call for the horse. I'll make it way quicker. Where's that boy? There he is. Nice. Alright, let's keep going. Looking at the rocks, do we have any blurriness? Nope, looks far better. Looks far more detailed as well. Game definitely looks way better overall. Now leaving the city, we're sitting in the low 40s, so a decent FPS bump over what we had before in the inside of the city, but overall an FPS loss from low settings. But it's not too bad, it's still playable obviously. I think we will fall below 30 FPS at native 800p medium settings, because as you saw before in the city area, we were sitting at 31 FPS, and that area is intensive, but it's not too bad. There'll be definitely far more intensive situations, so I think FSR will be necessary at this point. Have a consistent 30 FPS experience. Alright, here we are with balanced FSR. FPS is doing far better, sitting in the 50s. But as you can see in the distance, it is looking a bit blurry compared to what we had before. Now on the Steam Deck screen, it's not too bad. It still does look quite sharp. But on the bigger screen, I can definitely tell a difference between FSR and native 800p. Yeah, the trees and the bushes definitely look far worse with FSR enabled. Far worse. But FPS, wow, sitting in the 60s in this area. Okay. Might hit 70 FPS once we leave the city, maybe? Game is stuttering quite badly still though, I gotta say. Yeah, look at that. Major stutters. Okay, so we saw how it looked and how it performed. Honestly, I don't know if I want to use the built-in FSR feature. I might just use the system-wide FSR that's built into the Steam Deck. But I'll see how it goes. I'll see how we do. And we'll decide from there. Alright, here's the high settings. Looks good. Alright, see you guys when I restart. And FPS, okay. Stabilizing at 31 FPS. Not too bad. Game looks fantastic running at native 800p though. Wow. This does look quite good. GPU's pulling around 11 watts of power, so a bit more than what we had at medium and low settings, obviously. Sitting in the mid 20s now. We can get 30 FPS with this, obviously, once we leave the city, but inside the city, we're going to be sitting in the mid 20s very easily. And those heavier scenes, we might even fall down into the low 20s, which wouldn't shock me at all. The game is stuttering quite badly, far worse than what we had at medium and low settings, and we don't have the headroom to cap the FPS to 30, because we're still going to be falling down into the 20s anyway. Alright, there's not really much point in us using the high settings, it's very unstable and very stuttery anyway. So I'm going to go ahead and optimize the settings and come back when that's done. Alright, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and test that FSR and then optimize the settings. So let's go and do that and then come back when that's finished. Alright, and finally with balanced FSR, for the game to stabilize. Wow, 40 FPS here, seriously? Quite impressive actually. The FPS loss is outweighing the quality gain from high settings, to be honest. The trees and bushes look very blurry. But still cool to see the FPS bump. We're sitting in the mid 20s in this area. Now we're sitting in the low 40s. So pretty massive FPS jump overall. Game is feeling okay. It's not the smoothest. It's still stuttering as I pan the camera around. But it is definitely doing much better. Alright. Well, that was cool. Just popped up instantly. So this could be an option for you if you want to play the game at the high settings. But for me personally, it just looks too blurry with FSR. So I would avoid this. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and actually optimize the settings now. And come back when that's done. Alright, I'm back with the optimized settings. It's a mix of low to medium settings. And with FSR enabled, set to ultra quality. Just so we can have the best looking game with decent frames. We're sitting at 42 FPS here. So about the same as what we had at the low settings. But quality is obviously improved. There's no blurriness to the cape. Or any of the textures in the area. The game is a bit stuttery still. But again, ideally go with a 30 FPS cap here. And should have a good looking game that plays well as well. Now as you can see with the 30 FPS cap, the game should be far smoother and far more stable. And hopefully we don't get any stutters as we roam around the city. Yep, doing quite well so far. Still getting some blurriness in the distance, but I think on the Steam Deck itself, it'll be fine. Alright, we're getting some stutters as we're loading in, but seems to be fine for the most part. And as we leave the city, the game's going to be easy to run obviously. It's not going to be as intensive as the city areas, so you'll have no troubles there at all. And for the battery life, we're pulling around 16 watts of power, which is going to give us around 2 hours and 30 minutes of battery life, which is quite decent. Still a decent amount of playtime, but for those longer sessions, you definitely want a power bank or have access to a power outlet. And here we are with 1080p gameplay. This is going to be at docked settings. I'm not really sure if I'm going to do 1440p or 4K yet. I think it might be too intensive for this game and the Steam Deck in general. But 1080p, we're getting 25 FPS pretty much on average in the city area. Wow, it dips into the low 20s even. It's quite laggy. Not the best experience, but I think we saw that one coming. We can use FSR as well. Probably use the balance preset to get a decent FPS bump or a decent FPS headroom. And yeah, once we leave the city, we're sitting in the mid 30s, quite playable and quite stable. Not really feeling any stuttering either. In those heavier scenes, going to be falling down into the low 20s for sure. So it's really up to you. If you don't care about the FPS drops, then you can obviously use it at native 1080p and have an okay experience. But ideally, I would use FSR. Alright, and here we are with balanced FSR. Look at that, sitting in the low 40s / the mid 30s. Way better. This is actually usable. Now looking at the quality, in the distance it is slightly blurry, but it's not too bad. It is definitely usable, I would say. We are going to be getting some stutters, obviously. This was the case at 800p as well. Even with optimized settings, the game will stutter occasionally. Alright, I think that's about it. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys next time for The Witcher 3's next gen update. See you guys next time.